Good morning, YouTubers. Talking about the evolution of firearms again because it's a very important thing that I'm interested in. As you know, there's a few weapons that stand out in history as really good army weapons. And of course, the armies are always trying to find the best to give themselves the biggest advantage, which is natural. You know, you don't want to go to a gunfight with a knife, do you? So to speak. But there's been loads and loads of really good rifles because the armies traditionally had rifles with rifled barrels ever since they invented the rifled musket. They thought, whoa, this is better than the original. Anyway, moving on. There's been lots of really good rifles, and in the build up to the Second World War, they'd pretty much cracked it. They'd got it down to a fine art. I mean, the British had the bolt action Lee Enfield rifle 303, which was really good as bolt action rifles went. The Germans had something very similar, the K98, and that was perhaps better than the Lee Enfield. They were definitely on a par, but out of the two, I think the K98 was slightly better. In fact, Springfield copied it, didn't they? And to this day, some of the best high-end hunting bolt-action rifles are K98 custom guns. But moving on with the army, in the army in World War II, especially with the British Army, they had the Enfield rifle. They also had the Bren gun because they decided that they wanted the close support weapon, a light machine gun for the infantry, to have the same bullets as the rifle. So the 303 round that was in the bolt-action rifle was the same round that you found in the Bren gun. The Bren gun had this big curving magazine, like an AK, but on the top, okay, it fired 303. So they could use the ammunition in both guns, which was a genius idea because otherwise you'd have to be carrying completely different ammunition. Whereas if you had the one round that you could use in both weapons, that was made economical sense and practical sense. So that was the thinking. And after the end of the Second World War, they looked around and they thought, oh, what's this? The Germans had invented the assault rifle. And the powers that be thought, this has got potential, I like this. So we've got submachine guns in 9mm, we've got rifles in 303, and we've got the Bren gun in 303. And then what's this? The buzzsaw, the MG42. Ooh, that's interesting. We like that as well. And so they had this wheeze, you see. They thought that the assault rifle was the way forward. They figured the assault rifle could do the job of the submachine gun, and it could do the job of the infantry soldier, and it could do the job of the light support weapon because you flick it into fully auto and away you go. And the Russians thought the same, and they went off and they developed their gun, and the British sort of hummed and hawed and let's have a look at a few different ideas to replace the 303. Nothing wrong with the 303 rifle, but as the Zulu War 100 years earlier nearly had revealed, was that no matter how good your rifle is, you get overcome by numbers. And in this case, the Zulus, the British had fantastic weapons. The Martini Henry was really good for its time, but there was just too many. There was just too many Zulus, and they couldn't shoot them all, and they just got overrun and wiped out. So they needed something, and the machine gun was the way forward. But don't forget the Vickers was a big heavy thing, even though it was 303, the same round again as the rifle, but it wasn't very portable. So they'd seen that the German buzzsaw, the MG42, was super portable. And they thought, right, we're going to make one of those. We're going to do it. So they made the GPMG, which I think they've still got to this day. They still use it, the British. It's a belt-fed light machine gun, isn't it? General purpose machine gun. And that was in 7.62 NATO, because NATO came along after the Second World War, and they decided, why don't we all use the same bullets? We'll use 9mm parabellum and we'll use 7.62 NATO. And everyone went, yeah, great. fantastic, let's do it. And so they made all their guns 7.62 NATO. Even the Americans, they had the M14, which was 7.62 NATO. Cracking gun by the looks of it. I've never fired one, but looked fine to me. I don't know why they decided it was not for them. But then there was a split, you see. There was this big split because everyone decided that 7.62 was too powerful. I don't know why they thought that, because it was effective, it worked. I liked 7.62, but that's because we had 7.62 when I was in the army. By this time, NATO had adopted the FAL, the FAL, the SLR we called it, 7.62 NATO self-loading rifle, as it was known. And most of the NATO countries had the SLR, except the Americans, because they had the M14. And then something strange happened. You see, because they felt that the 7.62 was too powerful, on the grounds that most squaddies could only shoot to 300 yards. You know, it was a specialist marksman, sniper that could shoot beyond that. You know, it takes a special skill to be able to hit a target over 300 yards. And especially if you're talking up to 1,000 yards or more, you've got to be seriously good shot to hit that. So the average squaddie couldn't hit anything more than 300 yards. So they felt that the 7.62 was too powerful, and the Americans switched to 5.56 millimeter. The M16. Now 5.56 millimeter, that's 2.2, isn't it, in inches? And we all used to train on 2.2s, a little 2.2 rimfire, but this isn't a rimfire round, this is a big full load round, 5.56 millimeter, and it was ideal, absolutely ideal. The M16 caught on big time, and I mean big time. And they went on to produce the M4, which was the same gun, okay, with modifications. And there's so many companies nowadays making customised M16 stroke M4s with different modifications, the ambidextrous switches. I'll find them on both sides. There's loads. There's loads of customs. And the British still stuck for the 7.62. They wanted the 7.62. Reluctantly, they thought 5.56, really? So they went down to 5.56. They got that bullpup gun that the Enfield LAC. Instead of just buying the M16, which they should have done, in my opinion. But I'd have bought it. You see, if I was purchasing for the military, and don't forget they got NATO. They got to kowtow to NATO because NATO wants everyone to have the same fucking guns and the same ammunition because it makes sense. So there's NATO with 7.62 and there's the Americans with 5.56. Which one is the best? Well, as far as the army is concerned, with the rifle and the infantry, the 5.56 was fantastic. Really, really good, really popular, and they made so many variations of the M4, which is the same gun, pretty much. But then it came to the light support weapon. Now, the British, what they did is they made the barrel longer on and put a bipod on the front, and they called it the LSW, the light support weapon. 5.56 millimeter. It's the same gun. It's the same gun. But it's got the switch that goes to fully auto, whereas most of them are single shot. The infantry weapon's a single shot. Because as you know, as we've proved with the airsoft guns, a fully automatic burst, even in airsoft, is very, very difficult to get your bullets on the target. Small bursts, yes. I mean, they did burst mode, didn't they, where you fired 3 or 4 rounds at a time, which is a great idea. I like that idea. All weapons should have burst modes because full auto is a waste of ammunition. Most of your bullets will miss the target. Okay, it really is a panic button for close up and personal. Anyway, the LSW as a light support weapon, as a machine gun, was lacking in 5.56 millimeter. It really wasn't powerful enough, and they discovered this in Iraq and Afghanistan, where you had Taliban with old 303 rifles, right, that could outrange you and pick you off from a distance, and you think, shit, our guns are not powerful enough. So they were crying out for the 7.62 to come back, which is the metric version of the 303 round. They're pretty identical. One's in inches and one's in metric. The 7.62, that's Americans call it the 308. So it's not the 303, it's the 308. So it is slightly ever so slightly different, but it's more or less the same round with the same power. But the Americans love the M16, and they made the M16 in different. When I'm just generally using the term M16, I know there's AR-15s, there's AR-10s, there's all kinds of variants, but I'm just using the term M16 stroke M4 to cover the lot. Okay, you could get that in 7.62 NATO, and I thought, wow, that's what we want. We want one of them. They're really good. I like it, but they never did. They went off and got this new L85A1, A2, and they're looking to scrap them in the end. And the British have reluctantly bought the M4, Knight Stoner version of the M4, which is a customised version of the M4, M16. So the British have reluctantly gone to 5.56 to be the same as the Americans. Okay, even though they feel that 5.56 in the light support weapon is not up to scratch. It needs to be more powerful, more range. And just as NATO has decided to use 5.56, the Americans decided to bring out the M5, which is the M4 in a bigger caliber. Pretty much. It's in 6.8mm now, which is the more powerful round, because the Americans obviously have thought, the 5.56 could do to be a bit more powerful. Why didn't we all get the 7.62 M16 M4 in the first place? That's what I would do. I'd say, right, that's what we're having. We're having this in 7.62. That means we can still use the LMG, which I used when I was in the military, but they can convert it to use the same magazines as the M16 M4, right? Just think how much money that would save, and we could use the GPMG, same caliber, the American M60, which I think they phased the M60 out, but if they used, I can't remember what caliber the M60 is, but if that was in 7.62 times 51mm as well, we'd all be there, we'd all be laughing, wouldn't we? We'd all be happy. But no, we've all gone a different way. So the British have gone back to 5.56, and they still don't have something powerful enough. But maybe the British will finish up adopting the M5, which is an unproven weapon. I mean, it's identical to the M4. It comes apart in two halves. It's got a cocking lever at the side, one at the back. The buttons are in the same place. So if you grew up on the M16, M4, then you won't have any problems converting to the M5, because it's basically the same thing with a bigger caliber. But if you're going to go to a bigger caliber, why not go to 7.62? They've had 7.62 M4s for a long time. Long time. Why not just say, right, standard NATO weapon, come on, we can get... Because there's all different manufacturers making these things now, not just Colt. Colt was the original, the Armalite and things like... But it's all evolved now, so you can buy a custom, like the Knight Stoner that the British are buying now. That's not made by Colt, is it? It's probably... I don't know what the rules are. Made it under license, whatever. But that's what NATO needs. NATO needs something which is we all use. We need to just decide on one caliber. And I say 7.62 is the caliber that we should all be using. We should be using the belt-fed 7.62 machine gun. We should be using the M4 in 7.62 or the M5 in 7.62. Why can't we use that? Why have we got to go to 6.8, which is, I'm sure it's very good, otherwise the American army wouldn't have adopted it. But it's an unknown. It's somewhere between 5.56 and 7.62, isn't it? It's in the middle. Maybe it is the right round, because maybe the 7.62 was too powerful. and the 5.56 wasn't powerful enough, and it needs to be somewhere in the middle. So, and they do have two different rounds. They got the standard round for the M5, and they've got high pressure, which is super more expensive. I mean, as it is, 7.62 NATO round or a 308. I was watching a YouTuber the other day, and he reckons they're nearly $1 each, just for one bullet. And you put 50 rounds on a belt, there's $50 gone in seconds. So it's expensive. It is expensive. But NATO is falling apart at the moment. You know, they're just arguing and squabbling. They can never agree on anything. And you think, oh dear. But the M4, the M16 platform is fantastic. I've seen these things in 9mm. The 9mm magazine stuck in them and make a short barrel. You think, genius. You've actually finished up with a design with two pins, and the top and the bottom come apart. You can put different barrels in, different gubbins inside. You can put different magazines, different calibers. What a fantastic weapon that is. In fact, that is probably the best weapon in the world. Apart from one. And I'll be talking about that in another video.